Hi again. Okay, so you guys just got done watching the 3.6 video, and now you're going to watch the 3.7 video, and you may be thinking, Ms. Schultz, I got this. Don't worry about it. We don't need to watch this. Yes, you do. So stop and please watch, because there is an extra little tidbit that you need to know about when you are multiplying and dividing when dealing with inequalities. And the biggest thing you need to know is when you are dividing or multiplying each side and there is a negative number that you are doing to both sides, you have to flip your inequality symbol. So, for instance, if I flip the less than, it will be, and this is just what will the flip symbol be. You guys can do this very quickly. You guys know what the flip symbol would be. You're just flipping it around. Less than turns into greater than turns into less than or equal to turns into greater than or equal to, and greater than or equal turns into less than or equal to. Let's see how that is being used in problems. I highlighted something and it'll come up in a minute. I'm sure you can imagine what it'll be. So if I have this problem, negative 1/8 n is greater than or equal to 2. I'm going to solve this just like I would any normal equation. The difference is there's an inequality. But I'm going to solve it like I would any normal problem, which you would tell me that you need to multiply both sides by negative 8. And so I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 8. When I multiply both sides by negative 8, I'm going to, on one side, get n, but on the other side, I'm going to get negative 16. The big thing here is the fact that I just multiplied both sides by a negative. That's huge. When I multiply both sides by a negative, I have to flip my sign. My sign will flip. Now, it has no bearing on whether or not the number that, like this 2, if that 2 was negative, that doesn't mean anything. The reason why we flipped it is because we multiplied both sides by negative 8. And so now I go down to my answer for when I am deciding what to graph. I am only looking at my answer when I am trying to figure out what to graph. I see negative 16. I see it says an or equal to. That means a closed circle. I am then going to pick a number from either side, and I'm going to plug it into my answer, and I'm going to see which one makes sense. So I say, does negative 15, putting in for n, make sense? Is negative 15 less than or equal to negative 16? And your answer is no. So then I plug in negative 17. Is negative 17 less than or equal to negative 16? And you would say yes. Now again, all I did here is I solved it like a normal one-step equation. The difference is it's an inequality. So I have to ask myself, did you multiply or divide by a negative number? And if the answer is yes, or I should say, did you multiply or divide by a negative number to both sides? If the answer is yes, then you flip the symbol. If the answer is no, then you just drop it. But we need to remember, when multiplying by a negative to both sides, the sign needs to flip. Okay. Feel free to pause that and go back and continue writing that little thing on your notes. Number 2, you are going to say, well, Ms. Schultz, I'm supposed to divide each side by negative 3. And you're right. You're going to divide each side by negative 3. Great job. On one side, you're going to get m, and on the other side, you're going to get negative 5. Now, the question is, what's your symbol? Your symbol's going to flip. It's going to flip because I just divided by a negative to both sides. And therefore, I get this as my answer. So then I'm going to graph, and I'm going to say -5 is going to get an open circle because it doesn't have an or equal to. I am going to shade to the right or to the left. Well, if I plug in a -4, is -5 less than -4? Your answer should be yes. And so we shade to the right. Number 3, you're going to say, Ms. Schultz, you should multiply by 6 to both sides. Awesome. Great job. And I end up getting T, and I get, oh, where's my answer? T is greater than 24. You will notice that I did multiply on each side, but because I multiplied a positive number on each side, I left the symbol the same. I didn't multiply each side by a negative, so my answer stays the same. And when I go to graph it, I graph 24, I say it's an open circle, and I'm going to shade to the right. Because if I plug in 25, 25 is greater than 24, so I shade in to the right. All right. Now I want to reiterate, if let's say this 4 was a negative, and on this side I would have done -4 times 6, I still would not have flipped my symbol because what I did to both sides was I multiplied by 6. So just know that it's only when you do it to both sides. Last one we're going to do here today, it's this word problem. It says about 15,000 fruit-eating bats live in Barrow, Colorado Island. Yearly they eat up to. So they're not eating more, but they could eat less. So they eat up to 61,440,000 grams of fruit. Write and solve an inequality to find out about how many grams G of fruit each bat eats yearly. So our inequality turns out to be 15,000 G is less than or equal to the 61 million. The reason why it's less than is because I asked myself, can it be less than? Can they eat less than that? And the answer is yes. They just can't eat more. Then I have to write, can they eat exactly that? And the answer again is yes, which is why it says or equal to. Now when I go to solve this, I divide by 15,000 each, and I get G is less than or equal to 4,096 grams yearly. You'll notice I did not flip my sign because I did not multiply either side or divide either side by a negative number. So therefore, I get that as my answer. So to recap, I have when I multiply or divide each side by a negative number, I have to flip my sign. When I multiply each side by a positive number, I have to leave my symbol just the way it is. All right, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask the sub or myself. I will be there later today, so you can just drop on by and come and ask me. And that's it. So you can go ahead and get working on your work now. Have a good day.